This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
The end of the Parsha talks about the Bnei Menashe, the distribution of Eretz Yisrael to the Bnei Menashe, and the pasuk says, the Parak Lamed Beis pasuk Mem, Vayitein Moshe es Hagilad l'Macher ben Menashe vayishava. Moshe gave the Gilad to Macher ben Menashe, and he lived there. Okay. V'Yair ben Menashe halach vayilkoid es Chavoseya. Yair ben Menashe went, he conquered their cities.
The villages.
Vayikra eshen Chavos Yair. He called them the villages of Yair. V'Noivach halach. Noivach went. Vayilkoid es Kinas. V'es b'naiseha. He conquered Kinas and the tributaries. Vayikra la Noivach b'shmai. And he called it Noivach in his name. Very interesting. Very interesting. Vayikra la Noivach b'shmai. So Rashi points out that the word la is different than every other law in the Torah. Why? Because it doesn't have a mapikei. It should be called Vayikra la Noivach b'shmai. The word la should have a mapikei. La eino mapikei. Why? What's the explanation? V'ra'isi b'yisoidash of Moshe Hadarshan. Says Rashi, I saw in the Sefer, the Yisoidai of Moshe Hadarshan, Lefi shaloi niskayim la shem zeh. This name did not last. Lefikach hu rafeh. Therefore, it is not chazak, it is rafeh, it is missing. It's missing a hey. Shemashma, it's missing a dagish. Shemashma midrasha k'mayloi. The way we darshan it, if it doesn't have the dot, is vayikra loy noivach. It's not noivach anymore. Okay, so Rashi, we're just going to digress for a few moments. Utmihani, Rashi is bothered, according to this drasha. Ma yidrosh b'shtei tevos hadomosla. What are we going to darshan with the other two places in Tanakh where it says la without the dot? Vayomer la bayas, it doesn't have a dot. Also, livnois la bayas, it doesn't have a dot. But this is what Rashi is reporting in the name of his Rabbi, Rav Moshe Hadarshan, that the word la does not have a dot. So the Balaturim is coming to answer Rashi's question. In other words, Rashi wants to know, according to this concept, that when the word la doesn't have a dot, you darshan it like loy. So how do we understand? Rashi wants to know, how does this fit into Vayirma la bayas and livnois la bayas? Says the Balaturim, Vayikra la noivach la gimel loy mapike. There are 3 times in Tanakh loy does not have a mapike. Vayikra la noivach b'shmai. Why? Shloi niskayim la zeh. The name didn't last. Number 2, Vayomer elai livnois la bayis b'aretz shinar. Why doesn't it have a dot? Shabikesh livnois v'loy bana. He wanted to build, but he never built it. Vayomer la bayaz. Bayaz said to her, Shaloi diber imahu ba'atzma. He didn't actually speak to her. Ela yidei shliach. So the Balaturim is really answering Rashi's question. Rashi wants to know, what are you going to do with the other 2 places in Tanakh that it says la without the mapikei? Says the Balaturim, I'll tell you. Vayomer elai livnois la bayis. It doesn't have the mapikei to teach. He wanted to build, he didn't build. And Vayomer la bayaz, he didn't speak to her directly. By the way, the Sifsei Chachamim comments, why didn't Rashi like the explanation of the Balaturim? The answer is,
because it doesn't compare to his
it is not the exact drasha of Rav Moshe Hadarshan. Rav Moshe Hadarshan says if it's missing a dot, it didn't last. Says the Sifsei Chachamim, Uve Medrash Rus Darash Gam al Zeh HaPasuk V'chein al Pasuk Livnois La Bayis Ach Loi Kefi HaDrasha Rav Moshe Hadarshan B'kan Shemilas La Hu Kamei Loi. In other words, Rashi knows the Medrash, that when it doesn't have a dot, it could be darshan. The question is, Rav Moshe Hadarshan interprets it as if it would be written loy. No. And that drasha only applies in this pasuk. Okay.
He didn't speak that. He didn't speak this. He went to a shiur. That's meaning.
No, but Rav Moshe Hadarshan says it didn't last. But here it's not. It didn't.
No, that's not what the Sifsei Chachamim says. So the Sifsei Chachamim says la is like loy. It's not he didn't speak to her.
He didn't. Lord, you didn't speak to him. But Ramosh Hadarshan Daich is something else. It didn't last. It's not the comparison.
That's not what the Sifsei Chachamim says.
That's what the Sifsei Chachamim is. It's not what Ramosh Hadarshan...
Sifsei Chachamim says now because we're not darshaning law as no.
It is no. He didn't speak to her.
No,
There is no.
I hear you saying that's not what the Suzah Chacham
That's
says.
what this
In any event,
What about the Tamei Mikvah? The other two
what?
the other two cases is it Merchak Kula?
There are many times it says la the merchak kfula. No, it doesn't have a merchak kfula. No. Okay. In any event, what we want to focus on is the following. Rashi is telling us that there was a man by the name of Noivach, and Noivach went. He conquered Kenas, and he called the city Noivach. Says Rashi, by the way, the reason why it doesn't have a dot is because the name didn't last. Who cares? Who cares? We need the Torah. We know every kutzah Shiur is teaching me tilei halachos. Every single extra dot, extra crown is teaching me a limud. And here the Torah has to go out of its way to take out a dot to teach me the name didn't last. I mean, who cares if the name lasted or not? It's completely irrelevant.
Who's this Novach?
And especially, what?
Who's Novach?
Novach. And especially,
He was deserving to have his name mentioned.
and especially the fact that we find in Sefer Shoftim that the name Chavos Yair did last. We find in there's a Shas Chuvas Chavos Yair. We find in Sefer Shoftim that Yair Hagiladi went to the Chavos Yair. So what is it? Why is it important for the Torah to tell me that Noivach's name, Noivach's city, didn't last? And why is it important to know Chavos Yair did last? Okay, so we come to a very, very powerful, interesting explanation from Rav Shimon Schwab in the Sefer Me'ein Beis HaShoeva. And he says the following. He says, about 4 lines down, Hinei kol nekuda shabbatayra hi limud. Every dot in the Torah teaches you something. Like Rabbi Akiva darshaned on every kotes v'kotes, mounds and mounds of halachos. V'chein heder nekuda achas ugam kein Torah shlema. The Torah takes out a dot. It has a lot of meaning. Right? By the way, we find in this week's Parsha, there are about certain cities, Musabos Shem, that they purposely changed the name of certain cities because they used to be called idols, and Klal Yisrael purposely changed their name. By the way, I heard from Rabbi Yisrael Reisman, that's why in Chumash, the name of the city is Yericho. You will not find the name Yericho in Chumash. If you look in Sefer Yehoshua, all of a sudden it's Yericho. Why? What happened? Yareach is what? The moon. So probably what happened was, in that city, they were idol worshippers, they worshipped the moon, and they named the name of the city Yerecha. But when they get to Eretz Yisrael, they mangled the name. It was Musabo Shem. They changed it to Yericha. But in any event, we know every Nakuda in the Torah is a Torah Shlema. The Tzarech L'Havan, we have to understand Ma'am Lamdeinu. What is it teaching us? L'hayo b'zeh Shahidi Asenu HaTorah Shlein Eskayim Hashem. Another question. Hashem Chavos Yair. Why did the name Chavos Yair last? We find in Sefer Shoftim, Vayakam Achrav Yair Hagiladi Ushloshim Ayarim Lohem Yikru Chavos Yair Ad Hayom Hazeh. Shehakfarim Shabimei Moshe Nasu Arim. These villages became cities. Benisharu Bishmam. So we're going to say the answer at first outside, then we'll say it inside. And the answer is like this. You have a lot of people. How do they define themselves? Well, let's think about ourselves. How do we look at ourselves? Many people, they define themselves by what they own, what they do, what kind of car they drive, right? I drive a Lexus. You know what I am? I'm a Lexus kind of person. I wear Giorgio Armani suits. So what am I? I'm a Giorgio Armani suit kind of guy. Excuse me, Yankel. I'm not Yankel. I'm Doctor. What do you mean you're Doctor? Your name is Yankel. No. I am, all of a sudden you define yourself by your profession. I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a businessman. No. You're not defined by what you own. You're not defined by what you do. You're not defined by what you wear. You're defined by your ma'asim tovim, by your midos, by your character. What you own, what you drive, what you do, what you wear is outside of you. But most people don't get it. Most people define themselves by their profession, their possessions, their acquisitions. Noivach made a fatal mistake. And the mistake was the following. Noivach said, oh, I have a city. I will call the name of the city Noivach. As if to say, my new identity is my city. I now define myself by my city. This is a false hashkafa. This is a false ideology. This is a false philosophy. This is a philosophy that has no kiyum, and it doesn't last. The name doesn't last.
According to Artschool, Rashi says that he did that because he had no children.
Whatever the reason is.
Children.
That's very nice. But Yair, he understood. He understood that when you have a city, the city is just your city. And that's why he called it Chavos Yair. It's the city of Yair. It's not Yair. Yair is not defined by what Yair owns. Yair is Yair, and the city is Yair's city. The car is not, I'm not a Lexus. I'm not the kind of guy that drives a Lexus. This is how I get from point A to point B. This is my car. This is not me. Very often people start to see their identity by what they own, by what they wear, by what they do. I'm the kind of guy. What are your midas? How do you daven? How do you learn? That is how you should define yourself. But l'hein l'tay v'hein l'mutav, we find in Tehillim, David HaMelech says, Vani, he doesn't say Vani ish tefillah. I'm the kind of guy that daven. Vani tefillah. That's how I define myself. David HaMelech says, I'm not ish shalom. Vani shalom. I am peace. He defined himself by his ma'asim. He defined himself by his midas. He defined himself by his character. Says Reb Shimon Schwab ben Nira, Ki ha'adam sheyesh lo nechasim harei nekroim hanechasim al shemai. The nechasim are called by his name. But they're external to him. They're not part of his identity. Therefore, Yair acted properly by calling them the cities of Yair. To teach Shechavos Hagilad Shalohema. They belong to him. Aval Noivach Loikaras Kanas Ir Noivach. Noivach didn't call Kanas the city of Noivach. Ela Noivach, Lishmai Mamish. Hamara, which shows Shehu Mizdahe Im Nechasav. He identifies himself with his property. Liyosam Etzam Echad. That's me. It's an extension of me. Hashkafa Kazu Eina Hashkafas HaTorah. This is not the philosophy and attitude the Torah wants us to have. Ulafikach Ein Lakiyam, and therefore it didn't last. Uluuma.
Torah given two psukim.
What?
Why did the Torah give this guy two psukim?
The Torah is teaching us law without the dot that it doesn't last. This is a philosophy that doesn't last. Uluuma, but opposite this. Mashanechshav l'simin gnai etzel noivach. What was disparaging to Noivach. Ve'im loikiyam. Harei matzinu ha'hepach b'maisa ha'mitzvah. We find the opposite when it comes to mitzvahs. Shedavka im izdah ha'adam im ha'mitzvah yesh lakim oilami. For a mitzvah to have eternal, lasting, you need to identify yourself with the mitzvah, and I will give the following example.
Rabbi, can I just ask you, when it talks about Novach, it says, Halakwa Yoko es Knas v'es b'noseha.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what this b'noseha means, because by your it's Yoko.
Okay, we're not going to digress. I'm not going to address this. Okay, so this is the idea. Yeah.
That the society is taking him. The societies are elevating the one that has something. If he drives a Cadillac, he's a nice fellow. Society does it, nothing.
No, so we're saying that this is something that people do. This is what this was Noivach's flaw. Noivach identified himself by his city. V'hinei b'chol mitzvahs, I say.
Rashi have a saying, but just to try means when you meet a person, you meet him according to his dress, according to his clothing. When you say goodbye to him, then you meet him according to his mind, what he is.
Okay. Says Shimon Schwab, Hinei b'chol mitzvahs aseh, sheyesh b'kiyumam chefza de mitzvah. When it comes to all mitzvahs, Kagain shofar, tefillin, tzitzis, sukkah, velulav. Right? The person doesn't become part of the shofar, he doesn't become part of the lulav, he doesn't become part of the tefillin, he doesn't become part of the tzitzis. The person doesn't become part of the mitzvah. But there are certain mitzvahs that you become part of the mitzvah itself. You become defined by the mitzvah. For example, there's certain mitzvahs that a person could become one with the mitzvah. For example, by Talmud Torah, we find before a person learns Torah, it's called Torahs Hashem. Once a person learns Torah, it's called Torah Sai, like the Gemara Makkah says, right? When the Sefer Torah comes into the shul, what happens? Everyone stands up. And when the rabbi walks in, what happens? Everyone looks the other way, right? Why? Because people are tipshai, people are fools. Says the Gemara, Kama tipshai sharinshi. Look how foolish people are. They stand up for a Sefer Torah and they don't stand up for a Gavra Rabbah. Just the opposite. There's more of a reason to stand up for the Gavra Rabbah. What do you mean? Well, what's so good about the Gavra Rabbah? He just learned a lot. Yeah, but when a person learns Torah, he becomes one with the Torah. The Torah Sheba'al Peh is recorded on him. So if you stand up for the Torah Sheba'chsav, alachas kama v'kama, you have to stand up for the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Or we find by David HaMelech. David HaMelech says, Va'ani tefillah, not Va'ani ish mispalel. I daven. Not Va'ani ish shalom. Ani shalom. I am shalom. Says Reb Shimon Shrabi, that's the concept why we don't wear tefillin on Shabbos. Why don't we wear tefillin on Shabbos? Because Shabbos is an ice. Where's the ice? Where? Show me.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
Show me the ice. The ice, you need something physical. Show me an ice is a sign. Show me the sign. That's a sign? Not doing something? That's not a sign. Tefillin is a tangible thing. Not doing something is a sign. The answer is, when the person is not doing anything, he is the sign. He becomes the sign of Shabbos. The person becomes defined as a Shomer Shabbos. The Shomer Shabbos is the sign of Shabbos. It's not that, we don't see any desecration over here, so we need to wear tefillin. The person himself becomes identified as one who keeps Shabbos, so the Shabbos becomes alive. The Shomer Shabbos is a living embodiment of Shabbos observance. He's the ice. Okay, so we'll end off with one word on the Parsha from the Megala Amukos. Maybe you remember it. Eila Nasei B'nei Yisrael. So the Svarim tell us, Eila Nasei B'nei Yisrael. The Masayis are the various Galosim, the various travails that Klal Yisrael have experienced throughout our history. Primarily we've been in what? Daled Galios. What are they? Edom, Madai, Bavel, Yavan. Rashi Tevos, Eila Nasei B'nei Yisrael. Edom, Madai, Bavel, Yavan. Says Magal Mukas, what's the trap on Eila Nasei B'nei Yisrael? Azla Geresh, right? Azla Geresh, Munach Revi'i. Azla Geresh, we were chased out. Munach, we were placed, Revi'i, in the Daled Golosim. What are they? Eila, Masei, B'nei Yisrael. Edom, Madai, Bavel, Yavan. Rabbi Say, have a great Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.